As always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, and I'm going to be talking about Obi-Wan Episode 5, so if you haven't seen it, this will contain spoilers. So yeah, let's be honest, last week's wasn't great, was it? But let's move on from that, and we do get a longer episode this week, and there's a lot to fit in. I'm going to be talking about the end of the season spoilers right at the end of this episode, so I'm going to give you another spoiler warning, but as always, this will contain spoilers. So this is Tracker and the droid that they're using to hunt down Obi-Wan and Leia, and we finally get an Obi-Wan Anakin flashback, but no one's in a bacta tank, and that to me didn't make sense because Obi-Wan was in a bacta tank at the start of the last episode, and I thought that's where they were going to do it. And you'd think after an entire season of the Book of Boba Fett with bacta tank flashbacks, that's what the audience would come to expect, but no, we don't get it, and yeah, to me that doesn't make sense, but I'm glad we're finally getting to see the younger Obi-Wan and the de-aged Anakin Skywalker in the form of Hayden Christensen, and this is what I've been looking forward to with day one with this show. Although there was too many flashbacks in the Book of Boba Fett, I think they've missed a trick and there could have been a lot more here in this show. And Reeva is now the General Inquisitor, so yeah, I guess he's dead. Whatever. Haya's back, or Kumail Nanjiani's back as well, and I do wonder why he was sort of built up, or the way that I read it, that he was built up in the sort of marketing and press for this show, is that he'd be a bit more of a bigger character than he's been. But yeah, I don't really hope we get to see this guy pop up too much in Star Wars going forward, because I don't really get what they're going to do with him. He's not a Jedi and he's not a rebel. But what I did like about this episode is there is a real sense that Vader is hunting Obi-Wan, and that Vader is going to kill a lot of these rebel guys. And a lot of this episode to me does feel like the last act of The Last Jedi. There's, you know, the rebels that are pinned down a base, they've got to escape while the Empire's closing in on them, odds against them, Jedi sort of Sith fights, all that stuff. There is also an against the clock element, but yeah, it does look like a really smaller version of the attack in The Last Jedi for quite a few scenes in this episode, and I'm not the only one that's saying it, but the volume is sort of trapping them here, that characters can only move a few steps, and especially when it comes to running, it just doesn't look great. Yeah, we've got the trope of the rebels with their backs up against the wall, and Obi-Wan decides to talk to Reeva to buy time. That didn't really make sense to me, as she's going to happily cut him down and hand him over to Vader. That's been established in every episode since episode 1. But he's trying to recruit her against Vader, and I don't know, man, like, yeah, that was maybe a bit of a stretch too far for me. She's just got the position that she wanted of General Inquisitor, or Grand Inquisitor, so why would she fuck it up by helping this guy? Because even if she overthrows Vader, she's got the Emperor to deal with, and she's going to be no match for Palpatine. So yeah, there's been a lot of complaints of the pacing in this show. I didn't really notice it apart from last week, but this week, I don't know, it just seems that they're really mashing this all together quite quickly, and I'm not sure how it's going to tie up. And it does seem like a big risk for him to take, and this is how the story's got to get. Because Obi-Wan has to learn about Reeva's backstory, because we have to learn about Reeva's backstory, and yep, everyone was right, she was one of the younglings in the temple during Order 66. And we see the young Anakin cut these kids down again, and man, this is maybe the most violent show that Disney has done with Star Wars yet. I hope they sort of get this ballsy with Marvel sometime in the not too distant future. But I was hoping we're going to get a little bit more about Reeva being taken from her parents when she was a child. But the whole Jedi trauma thing, totally understandable, especially when she mentions about having to survive under the bodies of the other children. But again, we had to know how she knew about Anakin Skywalker, because not a lot of people in the sort of general world or universe of Star Wars knows that Anakin and Vader are or were the same guy. But this whole Reeva thing and this whole scene is definitely going to divide fans. We're getting a lot more Reeva in the Obi-Wan show, and I can see where a lot of people are going to complain about this. I don't mind the fact that she's in it a lot, I just don't like what they've done with her character. They could have given her a bit more backstory rather than just being angry about what's happened to her. But And again, it's the Obi-Wan show, not the Reeva show. And as I mentioned, a lot of the sequences in this, especially the fight ones where they're attacking the bunker or the base trying to get in, I felt like it was sort of aiming to be a big Return of the King style thing, but it didn't really work for me, and I was just thinking, where is Vader in all this? What is he up to? And Obi-Wan trying to save Tala, who I liked, but were not really invested in her as a character. I think if Haja had been sacrificing himself, it would have felt a little bit more earned and important to me. And I'm kind of sad that they killed Tala off, because again, she had that whole Miggs Mayfield other view of the Empire, and I wish they'd done a little bit more with her. But anyway, Obi-Wan decides to face Vader, because that's not what Vader's going to be expecting. And yeah, I like how Obi-Wan is sort of using Vader's expectations against him, because that's what the Inquisitors were doing. They were counting on what the Jedi's sort of core beliefs in them as a people would force them to do. And Obi-Wan's kind of doing the opposite here, and we see that throughout the duel in the flashback as well, in the way that he's talking to Anakin. But with one episode to go, these guys do need some serious face time. And I did think, why is Obi-Wan doing this? But maybe after that fight a few episodes ago, he thought he'd stand a better chance of doing this than a direct one-to-one fight with Vader. And yeah, he's right. We get some great Vader in this episode once he does show up. The fight between Vader and Reeva is pretty good. I do like how he's just swatting her away with the Force and just sort of holding her back. And he really takes it to school here. And it turns out that he remembers her from when he was attacking the temple. And man, look, this is a sort of deep cut that I wanted for Reeva, and I love that they've done it, but I just wish that they'd done it a little bit more. She just doesn't feel that she's earning this as a character, and it's not the actress, it's not her portrayal, it's the writing that's letting it down at the end of the day. But yeah, Vader being sadistic sort of emotionally as well as physically was really good here. And then, yeah, again, this is where it kind of lost me. The Grand Inquisitor shows up and he's alive, which is going to keep the canon fans happy, but how? I mean, if you're going to show up, explain it to us, please. And leaving her there to die, we knew that she wasn't going to be dead, she's going to survive, and I'm going to get to that ending in a minute, so stick with me. But one thing this episode did change up was Leia. She wasn't really doing much or really interested in it. That's not a complaint. I do think they had to rest the character. She's got to solve a problem to help them escape, and I think reducing her role after this show sort of being so Leia heavy was a good choice. We didn't expect that we were going to get Leia in the Obi-Wan show, or most people going into this that didn't know the spoilers didn't expect to see Leia. And a lot of people, again, it was a criticism with Reeva that it was turning into the Leia show. I kind of get that, so it was good that they gave her a back seat. I just wish they'd done it a little bit more often, a little bit sooner, to be honest. What fans wanted, or at least what I think fans want, was Obi-Wan and Anakin, and we got a bit of this in this episode. Was it satisfying? Yes. Was it enough? No. Was it a little bit too late? Probably. And while this episode was better than last week, I just feel that the story was a rehashed Last Jedi plot. Like, if you'd taken Vader out, what was really the difference here? There was nothing much going on. Even the conflict between Obi-Wan and Vader, I expected a little bit more going into the second last episode. Obi-Wan seems ready to face up to Vader, but he doesn't seem to have done any work to get his mojo back and overcome that fear and terror that we've seen him with the first time he faced him in that quarry. So I don't know how they're going to build up to this in the last episode. Yeah, the Vader stuff was cool, but again, I think it's a little bit too late. I wanted more of this sooner, and with one episode to go, it's going to be a big ask for a very satisfying ending to this show. While I'm more hopeful than I was, I don't know how this show's ending is going to affect fans, but I do know pretty much what the ending's going to be. So, this is double spoilers. This is going to contain, allegedly, what's going to happen with the end of the Obi-Wan show. So at the end of this episode, Reeva discovers that there's another child that Obi-Wan's protecting in Tatooine, and we all know who that is. So apparently, from what I've heard, the show ends with Reeva tracking down Luke Skywalker with a lightsaber, not at his throat, but literally over him, when Obi-Wan confronts her, and then she sort of realises the error of her ways, goes back to Vader, reports that Obi-Wan's dead, doesn't mention Luke Skywalker, and then Vader executes her. Now, I was willing to believe this ending up until this episode, and I'm sort of more inclined to believe the ending now, but also less inclined, because her finding out about Luke has now been confirmed, so I can see where the story's going with that. But in terms of the pace, how is she going to get to Tatooine, and how is Obi-Wan going to deal with Vader, go back to his normal life and stop Reeva as well? Also, when she finds out about Luke, why does she then decide to go back to Vader to get executed? There are other rumours that that ending has changed and that she's now just going to, confront Luke and then walk away, which I would like to see. I'd like to see Reeva pop up again in the Star Wars universe. I know not a lot of people think that, but I really like the character and I want to see more of her. What did you think of this episode of Obi-Wan? Let me know in the comments below. And what do you think about this rumoured ending as well? Do you believe it? Do you want to see more of Reeva? What's going to happen with Kenobi? I want to hear it all. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at The Geeks Reviews. My name's Al. If you've made it this far, please leave a like on the video and thanks for watching.